Hello, Internet! Welcome to episode 232 of the Assorted Calibers podcast. The Second Amendment podcast is a little bit for everyone. I'm Weer'd Beer. And with me tonight is the most important Second Amendment voice in the world, Aaron Billet. How are you doing, Aaron?
I'm doing fine, Weer'd. And thank you for reminding everyone that you can and should vote for me for the Gundies.
Every day.
You can vote for me every day, and I'm trying to be nice and not be one of those annoying people that nags you every day. But on the other hand, I'm up against really stiff competition, and if I just sit back, I'm not going to win. So I'm trying to hit that sweet spot of reminding you nicely, but not just totally beating you over the head with it. I don't know how well it's working.
It's working great.
Well, I mean, we won't know until February, but
you're gonna win. You're gonna win all of them. You're gonna beat all the categories.
Okay, Pollyanna. So you know what else is working? That would be the Postal Service.
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
Yes, they are. Not everywhere. As a matter of fact, actually, Xander was complaining about the fact that sometimes postal stuff doesn't show up, and my mother-in-law has been gets mail every other day. But are you hinting on something?
Well, yes, Weer'd, because something I ordered for you over the weekend arrived, and I know because Amazon told me.
It does, and it came in a beautiful bag. That's
the
exact same bag that my Canon came in.
And I know that a lot of people have set their Facebook birthdays to January 1st, but you were actually born January 1st.
I got so many people messaging, especially since my Facebook account that I almost never use, but I mean, if you want to go look it up, go ahead, is Thomas Collins. And so many people are like, oh, is that your real name? No, not even close. It was Ryan Machad bullied me into starting a Facebook account. And so I'm like, yeah, but I'm not using my real name. And so I put the Facebook name of Thomas Collins, and because Tom Collins, it's a drink. And
yeah, we get it.
And yeah, so people are always like, all right, well, we know that Thomas Collins isn't your real name, so January 1st can't be your real birthday. Actually, it is. So yes, so I have a package here, and I have undone the ribbon.
Now, I do want to point out, for benefit of our listeners, and I don't think I've told them that, is that last year, Xander and I found something which just absolutely was you, but it was a Kickstarter, and it has successfully funded, but it's not going to be fulfilled until, the spring. And he and I went in on it because we wanted to get you the full treatment, and it was a little pricey for me just by myself, but between the two of us, we went halvesies. It works out very well. And you were happy with that, and I understand that, but I don't know. I felt a little bit bad for you not having anything on your birthday, and then I saw this, and I figured, well, it's all over Facebook. Someone somewhere is going to share it, to the ACP Facebook group or Discord server or something, and I wanted to get it to you now before it was spoiled. And, okay, well, here, I'll get this to you. This will sort of tide you over until the other thing arrives. So, enough foreplay.
I'm dying
open the
of
package.
Anticipation. I'm dying. Okay. I'm opening the bag, and let's see what we got here. Oh, more wrapping. Oh, come on. I was ready for the big reveal now. Okay, and it is. Oh, it's a duck. And what is the Just Ducky floating tea infuser? Oh, look at him. Oh, it is. So for those that know, it is a rubber ducky with a little egg-shaped stand to hold him up, and his butt is a mesh tea infuser. So literally you drop him into your teacup and he floats around happily and
he poops out tea.
He poops out tea. Much like a real duck, the water gets stained. Oh, that is so cool. Oh, is that how it works? Oh, well, I'll figure out how it works later. It's not but oh, that is really, really cool. Oh boy, that is very happy. I'll show it to my wife too, because she's actually been stealing my other tea infusers, and I'm like, oh, and so she actually might. It seems like that actually might be a good design, especially since you can kind of like poke and bop the duck to get a little bit more movement.
So you're gonna let her use your tea infuser?
Yes.
Okay.
Because I enjoy living.
Well, you know what you can do is that you can take those Lipton tea bags that Xander sent you and then empty them into the tea infuser, and you can have yourself a nice, refreshing cup of Lipton tea.
Well, actually, I don't know if you don't listen to Handgun Radio, so you did specifically.
I don't even listen to our own podcast. It's nothing personal.
True. That's true. But no, Xander actually sent me a box of Lipton loose leaf tea. And because I was at the Indian grocery store, and I saw in the tea aisle, I saw boxes, and these were big boxes of Lipton tea that were loose leaf, and I said to Xander, because he'll back when he was working in an office, he would go on break, and he'd send me a picture of a paper cup with a Lipton tea bag floating into it. I'm just like, you jerk. Because for those that don't know, I was heading out on vacation, and one of the things I was doing was I wanted to buy a box of bag tea so that I could make tea while I was at the Airbnb we were staying at, and I happened to get a coupon in the newspaper for Lipton tea, so it was like 50 cents for like a box of tea. I'm like, oh, that sounds great, and I'll try the Lipton tea. It's been a while since I've had it. And it was dreadful. I just left it there. I drank the tea that I absolutely needed to survive, and then moved on. And so that's been the joke. Is Xander's been sending me boxes upon boxes of Lipton tea, and Oddball sent me some Lipton tea. And, it's just been a running gag. But he sent me a box of this Lipton loose leaf tea, and it's actually really good. It's actually quite a bit better than the bag stuff. And so I've actually been enjoying that quite a lot, and I can actually put it into the little duck. And actually, this duck is actually much finer mesh than the stuff that I normally use. The one complaint on the Lipton is that it's way more fine than a lot of the loose leaf teas out there. And so it's that last sip is rugged.
Well, this worked out better than I expected.
Yes. Well, Aaron, you did a success, and it's a cute new ducky.
Yay.
I love my ducks. They are friends and their food. Well, how have you been, Aaron?
I have been surprisingly good. It might just have been a quirk of circumstances, but you know that I never wake up bright-eyed and bushy-tailed.
No. But
this time I woke up merely tired rather than, a animated zombie. Mm-hmm. And I think it was just sort of the right combination of I took the right dosage of melatonin to get me to sleep, but not so much that it hadn't worn off, and I got enough sleep, and it was just, oh, hey, I've actually been productive and human today, and so I feel pretty good. I hope I can keep it up, but I don't know. So I've been getting lots of stuff done today, and like most things, very little to show for it.
Well, that was very similar in our houses. I was getting my daughter to bed, and I just went into my room real quick, and my wife is like fast asleep, and it's like 8:00 at night, and I'm just like, what is going on here? She just climbed into bed. I think she was trying to watch a movie on Netflix and just passed out. And when she passes out, she snores like a drunk. And so she was snoring. And then my daughter was starting to fall asleep, and I was getting a little tired. So I said, I'm going to go hop in the shower, and then I'll come back and check on you. But I needed to finish editing the ACP film tracks that we had for like 2 weeks ago, and I walked into. So I got out of the bathroom. I said I'd come back and I'd check on her, but then I was going to go downstairs. And I step out of the bathroom and I hear my wife just sawing logs in our room. And then I walk into my daughter's room and I say, are you awake or asleep? And my daughter goes, she just rolls over. But everybody woke up wide-eyed and bushy-tailed. So there's a lot of that going around.
Oh, wow.
All right, so we've got a bunch of news to talk about, but ironically, we've only got one segment this week, and who is it? It's from Oddball. And when I was mentioning that all right, who else has got segments for today? And like Xander's still feeling under the weather, and then everybody else has been busy doing other things over the weekend, myself included. And so Oddball was the only one that submitted a segment. And he goes, wait, I was the only one who submitted a segment? What kind of parallel universe is this? So yes. Still, his segment is a really good one, and he's reviewing a knife, and I would argue it is the most oddball of knives in that it is expensive and goofy, while still being fairly practical.
Welcome to Oddball's Corner Pocket. Back in episode 132, I reviewed the M48 Cyclone boot knife thing. Honestly, I think that Weer'd requested this review as payback for some of the movies I've persuaded him to watch. Recently, I obtained another ridiculous knife and thought I'd give you my thoughts on it. The knife in question is the Cold Steel Espada XL. It's a folding knife that's based on the Spanish Navaja style knife. The Navaja is a very pretty, slim folding pocket knife from the south of Spain that started showing up sometime in the 1600s. It quickly became popular as both a utility knife and a fighting knife, especially in areas where carrying larger weapons were legally restricted. In fact, it became popular enough as a weapon that a Spanish governor actually banned the carrying of it by name in 1750. Unfortunately, I was unable to quickly find a good example of a modern production traditional Navaja that I am willing to recommend, so I will include a link to the Wikipedia article in the show notes. If anyone does have a suggestion of a well-made modern production example, please let me know. I'd be highly interested. Of course, Cold Steel being Cold Steel, they did put their own twist on the traditional Spanish blade. They went with a large Bowie knife style clip point, which isn't unheard of for this style of knife, especially for examples that were designed with combat in mind. They added a thumb disc to the top of the blade. While theoretically you can open it one-handed, I have issues doing so, even with my large hands. The real reason for that disc is to act like an Emerson wave notch and snag on your pants as you pull the knife from your pocket or belt line. Doing so will cause the blade to deploy as you pull it from your pants. This actually works rather well. The next is that Cold Steel decided to eschew traditional materials like wood for the handle. Instead, my example uses slabs of G10 with a texture similar to that of the G10 scales on the Spyderco Paramilitary 3 that is currently riding in my pocket. This is a great material for durability, and the texture is a nice compromise between rough enough to give your hands good purchase and smooth enough that it won't destroy the fabric of your pants. There's also a higher-end version of this knife that has a handle that is a combination of stainless steel and polished G10. It is significantly better looking, and with the design of the handle, shouldn't sacrifice too much in the grip department. Both models sport a pocket clip. The handle is drilled and tapped for tip-up carry on both the left and right side. The clip of the knife is designed only to work on the right side, but there is a left side clip included in the box. Cold Steel decided to opt for their patented triad lock system, instead of either the traditional slip joint or lever lock. This lock system is essentially a beefed-up version of the back lock that the Buck 110 made famous. This is an extremely strong locking system. In fact, Cold Steel likes to brag that it's the strongest design out there. And from what I've seen, if it's not, it's darn near close to it. The downside to this lock is that it means that the release is very stiff and has a good amount of travel before it releases. Frankly, I believe that this is a good choice for this knife, as I'm not a huge fan of slip joints in general, and the old lever lock that was traditional is fairly weak and fragile. The downside is that I have actually had a few friends with smaller and weaker hands that couldn't actually disengage the lock to close the knife. Of course, I've been dancing around the thing that people immediately notice about this knife. This knife is absolutely huge. Cold Steel has a reputation for saying go big or go home, and this is a model that they decided to slap the letters X and L to the end of the name of. The blade is 7.5 inches long, and the handle is another 9.25 inches. For those doing the math at home, that's almost 17 inches in total length when deployed. The blade is roughly 2 inches wide at the widest point. As Nick Shabazz would say, this would get you charged with war crimes if you opened it up to slice some fruit in the office's break room. In fact, this knife's handle is large enough that it is actually molded to accommodate multiple hand positions. You can choose whether you want to choke up for fine control, or slide your hand further back for further reach or power. In either case, I find it comfortable and secure enough that I would have no concerns about it slipping out of my hand. Also, if you really feel the need, you can actually hold it like a two-handed sword. There's plenty of room there. Oddly enough, while this thing is long, it's actually pretty thin. The handle is only about 1/2 inch thick, and the pocket clip adds another 1/4 inch to it. Oh, that's right. Did I mention that this is a pocket knife? Yep. And surprisingly, if you have a pocket deep enough for it, it's actually not uncomfortable to carry. Of course, the pocket clip is low enough that roughly 2 inches of the handle will stick up out of your pocket, so it's not exactly discreet. Also, when folded, it's 2.25 inches wide at the widest point, so getting anything else in that pocket would be challenging. If you decide you actually want to carry this beast, I would actually recommend inside the waistband. I have actually seen a video of Lynn Thompson pull 2 of these monstrosities from his waistband, and after some experimentation, I've found that the thinness of the handle means that it's actually fairly comfortable to carry that way. In fact, while I still haven't figured out how to comfortably appendix carry a handgun, I wouldn't be uncomfortable carrying this knife in that fashion. The example I have uses Oz 10-8 steel. This steel is comparable to 440C and is a fine steel for the application. I would be annoyed at paying the kind of money this knife demands and getting a fairly budget steel, but there's a lot of steel there. If you would like, the higher-end version of this knife, along with the prettier handles, sports an S35V steel, which is a nice upgrade. So, let's get to the big question. What is this knife for? Obviously, this is not a knife that would be particularly suited for opening packages, letters, and other things that your average pocket knife is usually used for, although it would get that job done. This is primarily a weapon. And if you find yourself in a situation where, for some reason, you can't carry a handgun, but carrying a folding sword is kosher, then this would work great. Just remember that there are a lot of states where carrying this is straight up illegal, even if you have a permit to carry a gun. Even the smaller, large Espada, there doesn't appear to be a small Espada, at 5.5 inches violates most blade length laws that I've seen. Oh, maybe it could also be used as a folding machete. Other than that, I'll borrow once again from Nick Shabazz and say that this is just straight up for jackassery. Unfortunately, this behemoth is not cheap. The example I have has an MSRP of $300, and the nicer version sports a price tag of $600. Oh, I think I just heard Aaron faint over those price tags. Of course, the knife world being the way the knife world is, the real street price is much lower. Currently, Knife Center has the basic version for $157 and the fancy version for $300, which is still probably causing Aaron some palpitations. I was able to snag mine on sale for a bit less, but something this big is either going to be pricey or too cheaply built to safely use. I hope this was helpful, and I definitely had fun reviewing it, and I'm glad that this particular blade is in my collection. If you want to read more of my thoughts, I write at gunscarstech.com. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions for future segments, I can be found either on the ACP Facebook group or at oddball@gunscarstech.com. Until next time, have a good one.
Oh my God, those prices.
Was that a pull right from the bottle?
Yes, it was.
I learned early in my drinking career, never pull from the bottle because you never know how big a pull you're going to get.
Sure, we'll just pay new gun prices for a knife.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, jeez.
But Oddball in his original show notes did not include the did not include the Nick Shabazz review of it. And yeah, I had to post it in there because he kept talking about how big it was, and I'm like, let me see. And I couldn't imagine, like, all right, how does this thing fold up? And I said, oh, I remember Nick Shabazz did a review of it, and I quickly searched it on YouTube, and I'm seeing Nick, and I assume Nick does not have hands that are the size of Oddballs, which are giant bear paws. But at the same time, I don't think he's got dainty hands like you, Aaron. And yet he is grabbing this huge meat cleaver of a knife. And yeah, it is redonkulously big. There's actually also a video that Oddball dug up for it. Just we're doing a pregame of the Lynn Thompson at a I can't remember what event it was in, the Blade Show West in 2022, and he pulls one of these just out of his pants. And Lynn Thompson is not a small man. He is a very, very large dude. And this thing still looks comically large in his hand. It is very much Mick Dundee's folding knife.
Yeah, he's a big boy.
Yeah. And it's just such a silly knife. And you're talking about, like, it is a pocket knife. And, I just posted the picture of it, but I don't know if these were common in your neck of the woods, but in Maine in the 90s, it seemed like all of the skate punks wore these like super duper baggy jeans. I found a picture of the jeans. It seemed like most of the people were wearing like calf length shorts all the time, but these jeans are so like big and baggy that like you could like fit like an encyclopedia volume into the back pocket of it. And that seemed like maybe the Espada might fit in the pockets of those jeans.
Well, I figured they would fit in the cargo pocket of cargo pants.
Yeah, maybe. But still, Oddball's statement of carrying it inside the waistband actually makes a bit of sense. Of course, as he notes, and again, this is just one of these like foolishness of the fact that even though you might be allowed to to carry a gun in this area, you may not be able to carry a knife that's that large. And absolutely, Massachusetts is one of those places that has a knife blade length limit. I don't even know what it is. And again, I would actually set back on I'm licensed to carry a 45, but yet suddenly this knife is like an inch too long. Really? But of course, the Espada is like a foot too long.
I just want to express my opinion that that if you carry this, there is a moral imperative to say, pardon me while I whip this out, as you take it out of your pants.
I think that is only appropriate. Oh, well, thank you for that review. And please check the show notes and watch the videos in Oddball's show notes, because hearing the segment, it didn't do it justice on exactly how goofy this thing is. All right, time to dive into the topics of the show. We're doing it backwards because Oddball being the only segment, it's opposite day, and we've got some new changes, and the first one was I wanted to put this at the head of the show. Is the Alabama officially comes in as the 26th, I believe it's the 26th, it might be the 25th state to have constitutional carry.
Well, the point being is that half of the states in America are constitutional or permitless carry. Mm-hmm. And that's a big deal.
Yes, and actually I believe it. Yeah, it is. It's 25, and so this is the 25th state. So literally half the country now just says, "Yep, you can own a gun, and you can also carry the gun, no problem." Which, honestly speaking, makes sense because there's certainly nothing stopping you from carrying the gun. So yeah, this is great news and just another wonderful trend. And also, it just so happened I had overheard that Alabama had gone through. Well, I'd overheard in a podcast where someone was talking about how a state was getting it, and I just kind of missed the name of the state and went through. So I just went, oh, constitutional carry. And when I did that, actually, one of the first stories that came up was that Nebraska is also pushing forward on a constitutional carry bill. And again, all these other states are passing it. It makes it that much easier for another state to pass the constitutional carry. And so here,
nothing succeeds like success.
Yes. And so here is to Nebraska, and also here is to Florida, because, we all know Ron DeSantis is going to be running for president. And he's already done the publicity stunt of sending the illegal immigrants that are not welcome in Florida to Martha's Vineyard, where they are welcome according to Martha's Vineyard town laws. And so he's into big on doing big grandstanding stuff, and he has already spoken out saying that he wants constitutional carry to happen in Florida. And so maybe this will be the perfect storm that will finally shrug off the very, very goofy and powerful anti-gunners that are in your state.
I'm going to be over here holding my breath. I really want it to happen, but as I've mentioned many times before, not only do we have to overcome the usual suspects, but we also have to overcome the Miami Republicans who have never met a gun control bill they didn't like. So that's just one extra hurdle. But last year Georgia became either constitutional or permitless carry, and that was the big hurdle. So I at least acknowledge it's a possibility now.
Yeah, this is just, it's so amazing at how fast this is going through. Because again, it used to be it was just Alaska and Vermont, and that was the only thing there was. And then Arizona hopped in, and I think it was just Alaska, Vermont, and Arizona for a long while. And the whole key thing was that, Arizona has like Tucson and Phoenix. They have big cities, so this could go either way. And it went the way that you guys all know, because no one's talking about, Arizona passed their constitutional carry and their crime went up. No, it went down. So, funny how that works. It's almost like it happens almost every time. So the congratulations to Alabama, and here's to Nebraska, and again also here's to Florida, and pressure for all the people that might be a little nervous about that.
So continuing on the theme of good news, Weer'd, I heard something, and this is really the first I've heard of it, despite me being a little more active on Twitter. But apparently there's some good news involving Shannon Watts for once.
Yes, maybe not for Shannon. I am very interested on this, and unfortunately, the article that's being cited from the tweet that I have linked in the show notes is the Washington Post, and it's behind a paywall. And they say that I can read it for free, but I just have to register, and I don't want to. But Shannon Watts is stepping down from Moms Demand Action. So, yeah, she is stepping down. Of course, the headline here, this is from Rob Romano's tweet. Rob does absolutely great Second Amendment tweets. Shannon Watts is one of the country's most influential gun safety activists, says that she will retire later this year from Moms Demand Action, the grassroots advocacy group she began in her kitchen a decade ago and grew into a political juggernaut. None of that headline is true.
Okay, for our listeners, why isn't any of that true?
Well, first up, so Shannon Watts is a PR rep. She is a very, very successful PR rep, and she has worked for, one of her big clients was Monsanto. She has worked for a number of large corporate clients and working on PR and messaging information. And she has worked for a number of firms, and about 10 years ago, she probably like closer to 12 or so now, she decided to go off on her own and actually was based out of a home office in her house working for various clients. Actually, that's where she was working for Monsanto. She didn't work directly for Monsanto. Monsanto was just one of her clients. And so she was doing all of her PR work from an office in her home. And then in her LinkedIn resume, it suddenly just shows her retiring, just stopping. And she suddenly claims that she became a stay-at-home mom. And then 6 months later, the Sandy Hook Elementary shooting happens, and she claims that she was inspired by that and decided to start a Facebook group that became Moms Demand Action. Exactly. And then very, very shortly afterwards, like so much that I'm not even aware of like a website or anything that existed on Moms Demand Action outside of the Everytown umbrella. But Michael Bloomberg swept in. That's her story. But again, she's a very, very successful PR rep, and she suddenly becomes a stay-at-home mom and is only a stay-at-home mom for about 6 months before she suddenly dives back into full-time advocacy and working as the PR rep that she is. I would like to believe, again, this is pure speculation. This is not me. I don't have any insider information, but I suspect that she was approached by Michael Bloomberg, and Michael Bloomberg said, I have an idea. We just need to build up this idea of essentially a mom-oriented group, a Mothers Against Drunk Drivers type group, but for gun control. But we need a school shooting to launch it on. And so she went through, and while they were developing it, they waited. And then when Sandy Hook happened, it was, I mean, cynically speaking, it is literally was the perfect opportunity, because that is an absolutely horrible, 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 gut-wrenching just massacre. And it involved young children, so therefore the idea that moms would be tied to it. So it went through it, and they launched from that. And essentially it's pretty much always been a Michael Bloomberg group. And so I think that it was not so much of the grassroots efforts as she claims. Certainly there seems to be a very similar thing that happened with March for Our Lives, which is also an Everytown subsidiary, in that the moment the Parkland shooting happened, there were teams of reporters and interviewers there talking to students, and it seemed to be the ones that were expressing anti-gun concerns. They quickly got rounded up for the March for Our Lives group, and which of course was being run by Everytown staffers, but they put the kids out front. And so I suspect that more than likely this was a concerted effort by Michael Bloomberg using Shannon Watts. And if I had to guess, I think Michael Bloomberg doesn't have any use for her anymore, and that's why she's leaving. She's certainly, one of the big things that was going on was she was in Indiana when all of this happened, and she moved to Colorado, the idea being that she could much more easily get a Senate seat in Colorado. Unfortunately, she never declared her candidacy, probably because, like Michael Bloomberg, multiple attempts at running for president where he never declared his candidacy, the internal polling came back real bad, and so she never got it. But of course, at the same time, now we have two people that are loyal to Michael Bloomberg in Congress. We have Lucy McBath in the House of Representatives, and she was a former, I think she was the personnel director for Everytown. She actually had a fairly high ranking. And then we have Mark Kelly, who is of Giffords, but has a lot of direct ties to Everytown.
Mm. So, and I realize that I'm putting you in a bit of a spot, and there are things you may not want to say on the record, but why do you think she's retiring? Because the vibe I get, not from what she says, the vibe I get is that Bloomberg suggested she retire, and I'm wondering if he's unsatisfied with her performance or just tired of her crap. At one point, I remember she basically straight up libeled Eli Dicken, who was very clearly a hero of the hour, and she said something like, I don't know who needs to hear this, but if you carry a gun into a mall, that's not exactly a ringing endorsement for the Second Amendment. And a lot of people, including Eli Dicken's lawyer, went, you shut up. And I wasn't sure if perhaps the actionable statements she said made her a liability and he asked her to retire, or if there's something else going on.
I mean, I can only speculate, but I certainly would say that certainly that's going through. She has been working ever since she moved to Colorado. She has really stepped a little bit back from the gun control angle and has been focusing more on her overall Democrat brand. She's been working with a lot of Democrat fundraising groups and things like that. She's been really kind of rounding out her appeal as someone who might be running for Senate. And so therefore she's kind of been dividing her time instead of being just the queen of gun control that she was at the very start. And then, yeah, I think she hasn't declared her candidacy for any national office, which I think was the whole reason why she moved to Colorado. And so I think that, she's not really bringing anything to the table, and she has some detractions, especially since she's got such a big target on her back, being as vocal as she was. And of course, so many people, not just myself, have dug through her background to see exactly what makes her tick. And so that would be my guess. I think that she's costing the group more than that. Of course, it also could be that there's going to be another shakeup. I mean, obviously Bloomberg did a huge shakeup when he switched he changed the name of Mayors Against Illegal Guns to Everytown. They are still the same company per legal filings. But suddenly, Tom Menino, who was the co-founder, the mayor of the city of Boston, was kind of ushered off. Granted, he was not doing well. It was towards the last few years of his life when Bloomberg switched over to Everytown. So it could be anything. It could be as something as simple as she's not bringing anything to the table anymore, and she got politely asked to leave. It could be she's got bigger and better plans, and she wasn't asked to leave, and she is literally choosing to retire. Or it could be that there are big administrative changes afoot within the anti-Second Amendment community.
I mean, it's not like Bloomberg has a proven track record for not showing loyalty.
Oh, yes. Do you mean about all that money he was going to give to the DNC after he dropped out of the race?
Well, that, and also the promises of continued employment and insurance to all of his, they weren't exactly volunteers, but there were people who were working on his election. Yeah.
Oh, it was straight up his campaign staffers. Yeah. The big statement was, I mean, he didn't enter the race until I think 2 weeks before the Massachusetts primary. So he never was in the Iowa primary because he was not an official candidate yet. And so a lot of people were like, this is risky. Like, as a general rule, you declare early, into the year of your candidacy and you start raising money and all that, and you're jumping in late. This is political suicide. And he assured them, well, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I'd like to throw my hat in the ring, but guess what? I promise that even if my campaign doesn't last very long, I will keep you employed until the end of the primary season. And then which clearly they didn't have in writing. And so the moment the moment he dropped out of the race, he fired most of his staff, and they sued him, but it clearly they didn't have it in writing. And if you don't have it in writing, then it's as good as nothing.
Wow. I really wish I could express how I'm feeling right now, but I don't have enough money for lawyers.
It's all speculation, though it might be he who you to go to patreon.com and sign up for the ultimate group, because we talk about a little bit more. We're a little bit more free in the ACP mag dumps.
So this next one is something that I suggested for the show, and it's titled, Woman with Concealed Carry Permit Shoots Philadelphia Attacker on New Year's Day. And you may be wondering why I bring it up. I mean, defensive shootings are always good news for us. But what in particular makes this special? Is it because it's on New Year's Day? Well, no. It's because way back in episode 185, we talked about carjackings were up significantly in Philadelphia compared to 2021. And episode 185 was January 24th of last year. And so in this article, not quite a year later, but close, there are two little bits of data that I think are very interesting. And it doesn't say that this was a carjacking, but I have to wonder, because it says that that the Daily Pennsylvanian has pointed out that Philadelphia exceeded 1,000 carjackings for the year, that would be 2022, by the end of September.
Whew.
So yeah, that worry, how they said it went up since 2021. Yeah, it's even more so. And so that's why I think this might be a carjacking. But the other factoid here that I thought was interesting is that concealed carry permit applications for Philadelphia went up 600% last year. And actually, that number was valid as of April 1st last year. So who knows what it was by the end of 22. I mean, higher, obviously. I don't know how much. So I don't have any grand statement to make here. I just want to point out that, yeah, crime is going up in Philadelphia because of all the carjackings, and people are responding by arming themselves. And while the gun prohibitionists will disagree. Weer'd and I, and of course you, our listeners, think that this is a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so if this was indeed a carjacker, then so much the better. But yeah, I'm all for very painful methods of dissuading people from preying on their fellow human.
And may I note also that this is kind of one of those perfect storms in the fact that this woman was attacked, and then she pulled out her gun and shot, and the attack stopped, and the attacker was rushed to the hospital, and he is in stable condition according to the medical officials. So just as an extra reminder, especially it works well when you're when talking with someone who might be a little bit more on the anti-gun side. This is not about trading lives or causing death or all of that. Just because you shoot somebody doesn't mean that it's just a death ray, especially you're considered carrying with a handgun. Most people shot with handguns live. And so, yeah, this is just a great story because number one, this woman is fine. Number two, Second Amendment, awesome. Number three, the attacker is going to be fine, but probably going to go to prison. Not so good for him. But hope he's pretty. And
well, I'm glad for her sake because it can take a terrible psychological toll on someone knowing that you have just ended someone else's life, even if that was deserved. And so she probably is having to wrestle with the fact that she shot somebody. And so I'm very glad that this isn't on her conscience. I'm probably a bad person for not feeling any sympathy for the goblin. If he had died, I personally wouldn't have cared, but I am glad for her sake that didn't happen.
Yeah, no, and I've got no sympathy for it. This not carjacking people is easy. I do it every single day. I'm really good at it. Aaron, I bet you're really good at not carjacking people as well.
Yeah, I am. I also don't murder people.
Yeah, funny. I've never murdered anybody either. Yeah, so this is good. And also, hey, guess what? It gets the people who think that carjacking and murder might be a good idea, get some thinking. And I like them to think. Think about your life. Think about your kids.
Are you making good life decisions?
Exactly. Maybe don't do that because you may find yourself pooping into a plastic bag. All right, let's see. Are we out of the? So we've got there is some changes for the good. We've got with the constitutional carry, but there's also some bad movement. Now this is not as bad. This is not as bad as the others are good because this is not yet law. But I wanted to talk about it just because it came up, is that the Illinois House has passed an assault weapons ban and it's moving off to the Senate. So it still needs to go to the Senate and it needs to go to the governor's office. I suspect that if it passes the Senate, then it is assured to be signed by the governor. But yes, they have declared an assault weapons ban. I have the link to the whole law in the show notes. It's long and it's convoluted, but essentially it's limiting magazine capacity to 12. I'm baffled. Like where did 12 come from? I mean, I was even like running my mind through what guns do I know where their standard capacity magazine is 12, because I know the Browning high power is 13. I have a CZ82 and that holds 12 in either 9x18 or 380. I'm trying to think. Oh, Smith & Wesson M&P subcompact that holds 12 plus 1. But like 12 round magazines is like super duper uncommon. So I just it seemed like a very strange number. And then they are also going off of, they've named a whole bunch of stuff by name. Like there's pages and pages and pages of guns going through. I did not cross-reference it see if the Suru Buttmaster was considered an assault weapon. But it'd probably be worth a second look. But everything from the Colt AR-15 to the FNFAL, they're all these the Chinese Mac 90, all the usual suspects of the evil assault weapons are listed, and then they are going after the one one feature standards. So the evil feature. Yes, the evil feature list to define anything that's not by name one of these guns. And so they're going with one feature. Interestingly enough, again, the grenade launcher or flare launcher was put on there, which given the fact that they put flare launcher surprised me, because the original grenade launcher was, I think everyone assumed it was like an M203, an undermounted grenade launcher, but that doesn't count, because if you have an M203, it is a standalone firearm, and you can mount it to a firearm if that's legally permissible. Say if you have a full auto M16, you could get an M203 for it and mount it underneath the barrel, but you have two guns that are connected, not one. And instead, we're talking about the spigots for rifle grenades, which I believe some countries are still issuing rifle grenades, but you don't see a whole lot of them. At least I don't see a ton of them these days. But then since you mentioned flare, and obviously there's the 35 millimeter quote unquote flare launchers, which look like an M203, but totally not. And the ATF seems to be fine with it, so I'm not going to argue. It's just, I mean, the destructive device rules are dumb to begin with.
So for our listeners who don't know what the M203 is, that is the M16 with the underslung 40 millimeter grenade launcher.
Yes, that is correct. If you play Call of Duty, it's the noob tube. Because it supplies an instant kill. And so,
as opposed to I think it's the M79, which is the break open single shot grenade launcher that looks like a big old shotgun.
Yep, the blooper. Those are really cool. But yeah, so they're going on the one feature. What was really, really interesting is that one of the things that they've got listed is the pistol grip, and stating that it is, I believe, oh shoot, I closed the link, and it's a big link. I forget exactly, but it's essentially saying if your fingers are below the action of the gun while gripping the grip, and I'm like, geez, I can imagine there's a whole lot of guns with just a standard stock where that counts. So that may need to be revised and/or will bite them in the butt. But it's stupid and it's dumb, and it's also unconstitutional. Let us all be honest. Nobody ever cared about assault weapons until like the 1980s, and so this is nothing. This is nothing classical. This is nothing that has anything to do with the Second Amendment. The founding fathers did not care, and furthermore, the U.S. government didn't care when the lever action repeating rifle was invented, when the revolver was invented, when suddenly capacity started going up and up and up, and the ability to reload went up and up and up, and then, gosh, it was, there was, I think, almost a decade when the machine gun was invented by Hiram Maxim, and it was completely unrestricted in the United States. You could buy a machine gun just as easily as you could buy a folding knife. Just the only question was cost and shipping, and there was no restrictions to it whatsoever until the NFA came in. So
a folding knife like the Cold Steel Espada?
Yes. I didn't say folding hatchet. But this is something that I don't think is going to survive a Supreme Court challenge. Though again, Supreme Court challenges take a long time to come through. So I kind of wonder if this is also a motivation, is let us get this ban in place so we can just have it for a little while, and then we'll challenge it and play like New York is doing with their carry laws.
One thing I want to point out because I didn't learn this from the article. I actually learned it from watching the video that was embedded. In addition to all the things you mentioned, this law also raises the age of possession of a firearm owner ID card, which is completely necessary to buy a gun and ammunition in Illinois, from 18 to 21.
Yes, that's true.
And that is something that I oppose because, well, there are a lot of queer people who leave home at 18. Actually, they sometimes leave home earlier because it's not a safe environment, but they can't legally buy a gun for self-defense until they're 18. And so now raising that age to 21 just further endangers them for 3 more years. And so I would very much like to be involved in fighting this. And if there's the chance, if there are any legal firms out there listening, if there are any organizations that want us to file an amicus brief when this is challenged in court, I definitely want OBSPP to be a part of that. Absolutely.
Oh, another thing that this does is that in the event that this passes, again, this is just heading to the Senate at the time of our recording, but in the event that this passes, it will not criminalize anybody who currently owns a gun on the list, but it will require them to register it with the Illinois State Police, because that will do a whole lot of good.
So that when they criminalize it later, they know where to go to confiscate it.
That is correct. Again, look up any instance where a gun registry was used to solve a crime. There's a handful of crimes where they used a registry, and most of them, they just double checked their work. They already had found the person and the criminal through the registry. It's not a useful tool. As far as I know, it's never been used in Massachusetts. So the only thing it is used for is the knock, knock, knock on the door. Hello. We have it listed here that you own a Smith & Wesson M&P 15. Well, we have since declared that any grandfathering that was gone is now illegal. Please turn it in or come with us. And so yeah, that is absolutely where that is going to go. I believe it doesn't say exactly. And again, I'm not going to wade through the law right now. If magazines themselves will be completely illegal and will just need to be destroyed or shipped out of state. But this is going through. So again, if you live in the state of Illinois, contact your state senator, because they're going to be voting on this real soon. Constitute the what's the Illinois Second Amendment group? Is it iGold?
I want to say it's iGold, yeah.
Yeah, I think it is.
Illinois Gun Owners something?
Yes, iGold. The Illinois Gun Owners Lobby. Illinois Gun Owners Lobby Day is that the iGold is the group.
Okay.
I forgot. Oh, Illinois State Rifle Association is the group. So, but iGold is their lobbying day. So I just remember that's a great acronym. Contact the Illinois State Rifle Association. Give them a hand. If you're out of the state, if you want to throw them some money, please, by all means. But this will be a much easier case to not fight than to fight. So let's strangle it in the crib. All right. Yeah. Next up. So another one. This is we're going to cover one of Aaron's favorite topics, Chevron deference. This is not a law that we're discussing. This is a clarification. This is an advisement, a ruling by the ATF. Of course, we know that over the last 6 months, I forget how long it's been since it's gone through, but President Biden, I know I did an audio fisc on it, was cracking down on quote unquote ghost guns, essentially. Ooh. 80% firearms that can be purchased and then milled to have all of the important features of a firearm and therefore become functional. And it was essentially ruled that an 80% frame sold with in a kit, so sold with the jigs and the end mill and the other parts to assemble the gun. So if you bought a 80% Glock receiver, but the kit also came with the jigs and the tools and the assembled slides and the internal parts for the Glock, that was considered under the ATF and the Biden administration as an actual firearm, and therefore it needed to be serialized and sold at an FFL. And I would argue that if you are essentially buying a complete gun, why wouldn't you just buy a gun that doesn't need any extra milling? Especially since I've said it a million times, the only reason why I have not built a gun from an 80% kit is because I know that I will screw at least one up, and I will end up spending 2 or 3 times the cost of just going to a store to buy a gun by the time I have a working gun. But now they are saying that any 80% kit is now readily convertible per Steve Beetlejuice Beach.
Dettelbach.
Yeah, I don't know how to pronounce his name, but neither does Joe Biden. Here's the direct quote from Director Dettelbach. The partially completed pistol frames described in this open letter are readily convertible to functioning firearms under the Gun Control Act. Ghost guns can kill like any other firearm if they are in the wrong hands, so they are treated like firearms under the law. So
yeah, I seem to remember, I don't know how many episodes it was ago, we actually drilled down on what readily convertible meant. And when you hear that, you sound, okay, anyone can do it on their kitchen table in a few hours, but the actual definition of readily convertible boils down to, I don't know, you have access to basically a full machine shop or wood shop and a day or more. It's nowhere near as convenient as it sounds.
I believe it is eight man hours in a full machine shop, I believe was what they said, like essentially a full work day and a full machine shop can convert it, which we would point out that the actually what was the group that had the 0% AR lower that was just a block of aluminum?
I don't remember, but I do love them.
Yeah, and so that is absolutely what's what is according to that definition. Like you can with a full machine shop, it only takes a couple hours to convert a block of aluminum into just about any gun.
80percentarms.com.
Yes. Oh.
You can get a 0% billet AR-15 lower receiver for $48.99.
Yeah. So this is crap, and this is just again Chevron deference, and I'm sure there's already some lawsuits in the works, and that's good. And honestly speaking, it's kind of starting to sound almost like a bill of attainder, where they're literally targeting groups that they just don't want to be in business anymore.
Oh, you mean like the way Hasbro is treating other people in the fantasy role-playing games?
Yes.
Yeah, I know it's completely not relevant to this, but shout out to all my friends who are gamers and are aware of this nonsense. I gotta say, okay, Runkle of the Bailey, we know who he is. He's a fantastic firearm lawyer. He's also a gamer. He's got, in addition to Runkle of the Bailey YouTube channel, he's got a gaming channel as well. It's called Roll of Law. And I was just so charmed to discover, oh, he's a nerd too. That's wonderful. Runkle, I hope you're listening. I'm so thrilled to hear that you're on this case, and I'm learning a lot about IP law from you. So thank you. Please come on our show.
All right. Well, this next one you put in.
Yes, indeed. So, I know someone who was shot last week, and that's shocking. I want to tell you that this person is okay. If you are a gamer, again, there's a link, you know who Kenneth Hite is. and he wrote a lot for Steve Jackson Games GURPS. He wrote the suppressed transmission article for Pyramid Magazine for a long time. And this was posted publicly on his Facebook page. So since it's public, I figure I can talk about this. And so early on January 6th, which was a Friday, he was shot in the leg. You know what? Let me read this to you. So I got shot in the leg this morning. I'm fine. The bullet went through and through, didn't hit bone or a major blood vessel. If you're in the market for a gunshot wound, I recommend this one. I was walking home at 3:10 a.m. from a co-working session a block from my house. Car pulls up, 2 guys with guns jump out, words are exchanged. I dodge past one and run. He lets off 4 or 5 rounds, then realizes he's let off 4 or 5 rounds in very heavily policed Hyde Park, Chicago, by the way, not London or anywhere else. And they jump back in the car and tear off. He doesn't say it here, but it was a robbery. He jokes that they wanted his sweet, sweet 2014 MacBook Air. Continuing reading, I go inside, see blood on the floor, wake up Sheila, who I presume is his wife. She calls 911, cops show up, I get the tourniquet. Good for him, by the way. I don't know whose idea it was, but fantastic that he has a tourniquet and someone in the house knows how to use it. And for people who are wondering why he only realized he had been shot when he saw blood on the floor, shock and adrenaline are really amazing things. Mm-hmm. And, the human body is just thinking about escape. Your primary job is to get away to live. You can deal with pain later. And so a lot of times it shuts that off. So that is completely normal from everything I understand about injuries. So he gets the tourniquet and a ride to the hospital where, as a gunshot victim, I get checked in under a pseudonym. Easily the coolest thing that happens to me. See, I didn't know that, but I thought that was, first of all, an interesting factoid as a wannabe writer. But actually, it makes a lot of sense because if someone is shot as part of a gang initiation or otherwise just wants them dead, they may check the hospital to see if the person lived. And if the person did live, then they could go into the hospital and finish the job or be waiting outside to take another shot. And so, I didn't know that, but I thought that was very interesting. And so by 7:25 a.m., his very cool nurse has tied his bandage, and he's dismissed with basically permission to mix acetaminophen and ibuprofen.
Ooh, the good stuff.
Well, I mean, he was shot, and he doesn't even get, morphine or oxycodone or whatever. It's just mixing Tylenol and Advil. A lot of people are probably wondering what he was shot with, and I wasn't the person to ask that, but another person did, and they're not sure, but it was a 9mm or smaller, probably based upon the size of the hole. So I'm very glad that we're Facebook friends. We've talked a bit. I wouldn't really call him a friend. I'd like to be his friend, but I'm very glad that my acquaintance on Facebook survived, and he's very obviously in good spirits because he's joking about it. And while it would of course be preferable that he not be shot, I'm glad that things worked out well, and this is probably going to show up in some of his role-playing games because, as I mentioned before, he is a game author, and so how many times can you write about guns in the combat section of a role-playing game from the perspective of, well, I was shot, and this is what it feels like. So, good on you, Mr. Hite, for... Well, you did everything right. I don't know why they picked you, but you tried to run. Well, you did run. Unfortunately, you got shot, but that's not your fault. But you took appropriate action. You had a tourniquet on hand. You knew how to use it. and you've kept a very, surprisingly positive attitude, which will really help you in not just your psychological recuperation, but your physical recuperation as well. So I'm very glad to hear that you're doing well, and I wish you nothing but the speediest and completest of recoveries.
Yeah, and may I say that he is living proof of the foolish trope that you come through. Actually, a friend of mine has been baiting people on Twitter and sending me the results who are anti-gun, and he saw someone that was saying, if you're going to shoot somebody, at least just shoot them in the leg and not shoot to kill. And you can clearly see that sometimes shooting someone in the leg, they might not even notice it. And of course, also, may I step back and say that you can also shoot somebody in the leg and shatter their femur completely and cripple them for life, or shoot somebody in the leg and nick their femoral artery and end their life quite quickly. So yeah, that's why when you look at silhouette targets at the range, they don't include legs or arms or things like that. They just include the center of mass and the head, because those are the parts that count.
Mm-hmm.
So speaking of things that don't count, we have a court ruling that says that the bump stock ban isn't authorized by federal law. This is the Fifth Circuit Court on Banc.
This is fantastic news. It's really a shame it's taken 5 years, 6. I'm not really sure when it was filed. I think the bump stock ban...
Well, 2016 was when the ban went through. Or no, 2018.
Because the bump stock shooting in Vegas happened in 2017.
Yes.
So, all right. I'm shocked and appalled that it took this long, but the legal system is very slow. But yeah, the Fifth Circuit, for those keeping track, is Texas, Louisiana, and... oh my God. My geography is failing me. I believe that's Mississippi.
Arkansas, probably.
No, it's not Arkansas. Arkansas is the 8th district. Okay. It's whichever state is abbreviated MS. I think that's Mississippi because I believe Missouri is MO.
Yes.
Whew. But yeah, good, solid redneck states, and therefore most likely to be pro-gun and not put up with this gun banning nonsense. And I'm certain that Weer'd has a lot to say about it, because he always does. Here's what I want to talk about in the decision. And it says, of the 16 members of our court, 13 of us agree that an act of Congress is required to prohibit bump stocks, and that we therefore must reverse. 12 members reverse on grounds of lenity. I'm not entirely sure what that is. I think they mentioned it. 8 members reverse on the ground that federal law unambiguously fails to cover non-mechanical bump stocks. So, in addition to saying this is unconstitutional, and I honestly don't know if this is going to stand or if it's going to have to go up to the Supreme Court, but I love how the majority of the judges say, Congress, do your freaking job. Mm-hmm. And this gets back to, of course, Chevron deference, which I hate, which basically states, well, the ATF, regulates these things. It should know best how to, write the regulations. And it's complete buck passing, because with the exception of the director of the ATF, who's appointed, everyone else there is an unelected bureaucrat. And that's not how laws should work. Laws should be passed by the legislature, and if people don't like those laws, those people don't get reelected. That's how checks and balances work. Having regulatory agencies write the laws that they enforce is the complete opposite of how our legal system is supposed to work. There's no accountability. You don't have the police write the laws that they enforce. It's utter garbage. And so I am so thrilled that this has gone through in this manner, not just reversed, but the supermajority of these federal judges more or less pimp-slapping Congress. I love it.
Mm-hmm. And furthermore, I wanted to talk about just how absolutely dangerous the idea of regulating quote unquote bump stocks is because bump firing is a technique. It is not a piece of equipment. And I actually have a couple of videos in the show notes. One is called the M1 Garand assault weapon. Did you watch this one, Aaron?
Oh, yes, I did.
It's one of those YouTube shorts. It is very, very quick. And it's a guy essentially talking about, oh, this is basically a hunting rifle. Got a lot of wood and all that. No tactical features and all that. Good thing we got rid of those assault weapon. And then, yeah, does a bump fire for the hip. And he does a brilliant bump fire because it literally sounds like a burst from like a 1919 machine gun. And then the clip pops out. Because, again, you can do all the things that the bump stock does without using the bump stock. It's just a technique. And then I have another one with a guy, I don't know his name, but he calls it the Cajun machine gun. He's a competition shooter and he shoots CZs. And so he's got a CZ-75 and essentially he puts his finger, his weak side finger through the trigger guard and essentially presses the gun against the finger to discharge the gun, which would cause a bump fire. And so, yeah,
and he was shooting steel and it looked like all of them hit.
Oh, yeah. Yep. He was keeping a tight grouping.
Dang.
Yes. And so, again, these are just completely unmodified, full, semi-automatic, no, not even remotely fully automatic firearms. And they are shooting as fast as fully automatic firearms because it's a technique. It's not anything. And so, again, if they ever successfully ban bump stocks and declare bump stocks to be illegal, then eventually it's only a short step to say all semi-autos are illegal because just about every semi-auto can be bump fired.
Well, that's their agenda, though.
Oh, of course it is.
I mean, it started to say don't give them ideas, but they've already got the idea. That's their end goal.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a very interesting name attached to this Cargill victory. And I have a personal connection here. So the attorneys representing Mr. Cargill in this appeal were three people from the New Civil Liberties Alliance. And they were Richard Samp, Mark Chenoweth, and Harriet Hageman. Or Hageman, I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce that. Now, some folks may have heard that name before. Well, Harriet Hageman went and campaigned against Liz Cheney in Wyoming and defeated her. And so Harriet is now in Congress representing Wyoming. And I'm still giggling about this. I know someone in Congress right now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I likely don't have her email address anymore because I have her NCLA email address. But I have her cell number because back in 2021, we were discussing about filing an AC brief in this case. And so I knew her purely professionally because of, I'm the head of Operation Blazing Sword and I hate Chevron deference. And so it's neat that I now know someone in Congress. I'm not going to bother her because she's very busy, and what would be the point? Let her do her job there. I'm just going, oh wow, I know someone in government now. This is neat, and she'll take my call because I texted her and I congratulated her on her victory, both with Cargill and with her election, and she wrote back and said thank you, and so we had a brief exchange, and so it's like, oh wow, she'll still take my call. This is fantastic. So Harriet, I doubt you're listening, but I'm very excited for you and for your future career. I'm sure you'll do great things in Congress. This is absolutely well deserved, both the victory in court and your victory in the election.
All right. And the last one, we're going to end on a good note. The United States District Court for the District of New Jersey has filed a temporary restraining order for the New Jersey carry restrictions. I forget what the BS name for that law was.
Yeah, but it's the one where they looked at what New York was doing post-Bruin and went, yeah, us too.
Hold my beer. They literally said, like, you all right, we're fine. We're going to give you a carry permit, but you're not going to be able to carry anywhere.
So yeah, we don't really have a whole lot about this right now because it was just released the day of our recording. I mean, it was sometime in the afternoon, maybe even early evening. So really all we know right now is that the judge who oversaw the case went, yeah, you've got a good point. So we're going to temporarily restrain this law until the lawsuit. So you know as much as we know.
But again, this is the idea. This is very similar to the clever. It was funny when Chris Rock said it, but a lot of people are saying it seriously on the, oh, well, I guess we can't ban guns, so let's just ban bullets. It's the whole point of the Supreme Court saying you have the right to keep and bear arms is the fact that you can also actually do it. It's not about, oh, I've got a piece of paper that says I can concealed carry in my house or in my backyard. Like that's not what the Constitution says. That's not what the meaning and the spirit of the law is. And so, yeah, this may hit some hiccups and foibles because, again, this whole area is full of very, very anti-gun people who are very, very angry that the court is allowing them to allow poor people and people of color to carry guns that they've been restricting for generations. And so I'm glad to see that there's more restrictions, and this is going to keep going for a while. That's the takeaway here, is that they are not going to give up easily, but in the end, they will lose.
Mm-hmm. On a related note, and I just thought of this, I have a friend on Facebook who was one of the very first people to receive a concealed carry permit in Hawaii. So Hawaii apparently is not fighting this the way New York and New Jersey are. They are grudgingly allowing it. And so I don't remember if this was friends only or if it was public, so I'm not going to say his name. But, well, so he's got the permit, but now he actually feels like he can't carry because he is such a public figure and well-known to the local government that he thinks he's basically on their radar and they're going to look for any reason to trip him up, catch him, you stepped 1 foot into this prohibited zone and you didn't know there was a school there and now we're going to arrest you. Mm-hmm. So I'm very glad that he has his permit. I'm sorry that he feels like he can't carry, but the good news is that Hawaii at least has decided that they're not going to do a death grip on this. Mm-hmm. And so, yay, victory, yay, progress.
It does appear that Massachusetts is not as well, but we shall see because there's always time. But yeah, so far it seems like just the restrictions tab on our carry permits is gone. And that's official. And now all the states are now, or all the towns are now shall issue. So hopefully it will stay that way.
Okay, it's set public. I can say it. His name is Andrew Namiki Roberts, and as of January 4th, he got his concealed carry license. He calls it the Honolulu, right? Because they're islands. Duh, that probably has something to do with it. Maybe it's only for one particular island within the state. And he says the total process took more than 6 months. Most of this is because the police chief dragged his feet changing the rules. And it took 30 days from submitting his completed application under the new rules to be issued. So, good for him. And I will drop a link to that in the show notes.
Congratulations to him.
God, you are just deep fried stuff. Let's get you to bed, old man.
All right. Well, before I fall asleep, I think it is time to thank each and every one of our listeners. And a very special thanks to all our supporters on Patreon. To become a Patreon patron, go to patreon.com/Assorted Calibers podcast to sign up. Patrons get an early release of the podcast, plus bonus content like our hilarious blooper reels, the ACP film track, and the ACP bag dump. And also, I just posted a video on Patreon. Panya recorded David and Oddball attempting to fire their potato cannon. Note, I said attempting. That's a spoiler alert. And firing off the mini cannons like the ones that we have. So go if you are a patron member at the $4 level or better, you can view this lovely video of Oddball and David because learning all about the ACP Christmas mini cannons.
Also, please remember to rate us on Apple Podcasts, subscribe to us on the platform of your choice, and share the show with your friends, both online and off.
I've got a blog. It's called WeirWorlds.com, and you can hear me weekly on Handgun Radio, which is on the Firearms Radio Network.
I've also got a blog and all sorts of other things going on. And so you can get more from me at Linktree/Aaron Paulette. That's linktree.ee/Aaron Paulette, all one word.
And make sure to vote for Aaron in the Gundies. And much thanks to Nate Spencer for this lovely music.
I am absolutely delightful, and every word that comes out of my mouth is golden poetry, and Weer'd falls asleep when I'm talking. Our attention span is assorted, and so's our podcast. Good night, everybody. Well done, sir.